At some point in life, something subtle begins to change in the way intelligent people interact with the world. They speak less, they attend fewer gatherings, they stop explaining themselves. Not because they suddenly dislike people, but because they begin to notice things that are difficult to ignore. They start seeing patterns in conversations, hidden motives behind kindness, unspoken competition between friends, and the quiet pressure to think like everyone else. And once you see these patterns, something inside you changes. You realize that many social interactions are not really about connection at all. They are about performance. And when that realization settles in, intelligent people often begin to withdraw, not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. Most people grow up believing that being social automatically means being understood. We assume that the more people around us, the less alone we will feel. But many intelligent people eventually experience the opposite. They can be surrounded by friends, coworkers, or family, and still feel strangely disconnected. Why? Because intelligence often brings a deeper level of observation. Instead of simply participating in conversations, intelligent people analyze them. They notice when someone pretends to agree just to avoid conflict. They notice when humor hides insecurity. They notice when kindness is actually manipulation. And slowly, a quiet exhaustion begins to grow. Not from people themselves, but from the constant awareness of human behavior. Have you ever left a conversation feeling mentally drained, not because it was difficult, but because it felt superficial? Many intelligent people experience this regularly. They realize that much of social life revolves around unspoken rules. Don't question too deeply, don't challenge the group too much, don't make others uncomfortable with honesty. But curiosity rarely obeys those rules. And that creates tension, because the more a person questions things, the more they begin to feel out of place. Many philosophers throughout history noticed this strange relationship between intelligence and isolation. One of them was Arthur Schopenhauer. He believed that highly perceptive individuals often feel disconnected from society because they become aware of how much human behavior is driven by ego, desire, and illusion. According to his view, people are constantly seeking validation, status, or comfort, and much of social interaction revolves around maintaining those illusions. But when someone begins to see through them, it becomes harder to participate naturally. Another thinker, Friedrich Nietzsche, observed something similar. He believed that independent thinkers often walk a lonely path, not because they want to be alone, but because they refuse to blindly follow collective thinking. And when someone refuses to conform to the group's beliefs, the group often reacts with discomfort, sometimes even rejection. Then there is Carl Jung, who explained that self-awareness naturally separates individuals from the crowd. The more a person explores their own mind, the more they notice the unconscious behaviors shaping others. And once you become aware of these patterns, it becomes difficult to ignore them. You can see this dynamic in everyday life. Imagine a group of friends having dinner together. Most of the conversation revolves around gossip, complaints about work, or repeating the same familiar jokes. Everyone laughs, everyone participates, but one person at the table begins to feel strangely detached. They're listening, but their mind starts asking deeper questions. Why do people feel the need to criticize others so often? Why does the group quickly reject any opinion that challenges the majority? Why do people laugh at jokes they don't actually find funny? These questions rarely get asked out loud, because asking them would immediately disrupt the social harmony of the group. So instead, the intelligent person becomes quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but because they realize that honesty would make others uncomfortable. Another example appears in the workplace. An intelligent employee might notice subtle power dynamics between colleagues. They see how certain people flatter the boss to gain approval. They see how ideas are sometimes ignored until someone with higher status repeats them. They see how many decisions are driven more by politics than by logic. And over time, this awareness creates distance, because when you begin to see the game, it becomes harder to enjoy playing it. Social media creates another layer of this experience. Many intelligent people eventually feel exhausted by the constant performance of happiness online. Perfect vacations, perfect relationships, perfect lifestyles. But behind those images often exist insecurity, comparison, and quiet dissatisfaction. And once someone recognizes this pattern, scrolling through endless performances of perfection begins to feel empty. So they slowly disconnect. Here's the truth most people rarely say out loud. Intelligence does not automatically make life easier. In many ways, it makes life more complicated, because awareness removes illusions. When you begin to see human behavior clearly, you also begin to see contradictions. You see how often people say one thing but mean another. You see how easily group opinions change depending on social pressure. You see how uncomfortable many people become when faced with honest reflection. And this realization can be deeply lonely, not because intelligent people think they are superior, but because they struggle to find conversations that feel genuine. They crave depth. They want to talk about meaning, purpose, psychology, human nature. But many everyday interactions stay on the surface, and slowly a quiet shift happens. Instead of forcing themselves to participate in shallow conversations, they begin choosing silence. Instead of constantly seeking social approval, they begin valuing solitude. And something surprising happens. Solitude stops feeling like loneliness. It begins to feel like clarity. But withdrawing from society does not have to mean becoming isolated or bitter. In fact, it can become a powerful stage of psychological growth, because stepping back from constant social noise allows people to understand themselves more deeply. They begin to notice their own patterns of thought, their own fears, their own motivations, and this self-awareness creates emotional maturity. Instead of reacting impulsively to every social situation, they become more selective. They choose meaningful conversations over constant interaction. They choose authenticity over approval. They build smaller but deeper relationships. And perhaps most importantly, they learn to observe human behavior without becoming consumed by it. This is where real wisdom begins to form, not in rejecting society completely, but in understanding it clearly. Intelligent people eventually realize something important. The goal is not to escape humanity. The goal is to navigate it consciously, to understand that many people operate on habit, emotion, and social pressure, and that expecting everyone to think deeply about life might be unrealistic. Once this realization settles in, something changes again. The withdrawal becomes calmer, less defensive, less cynical. It becomes a quiet form of independence. Perhaps the real reason intelligent people withdraw from society is not because they dislike people. It is because they begin to see the world differently. They notice the subtle games behind social behavior, the hidden insecurities beneath confidence, the quiet loneliness many people hide behind constant activity. And once you notice these things, you cannot completely return to the illusion. But there is also a strange beauty in this awareness, because it allows you to choose your life more deliberately, to choose meaningful friendships instead of many acquaintances, to value honest conversations over comfortable lies, to spend time in reflection rather than constant distraction. Maybe intelligence does not isolate people from society. Maybe it simply changes how they participate in it. And perhaps the real challenge of intelligence is not loneliness, but learning how to stay connected to humanity while still seeing it clearly. So let me ask you something. What truth about human nature did you learn the hard way? Because sometimes the moment we begin to withdraw from the crowd is the moment we finally understand it.